sorry.
Very local.
No.
Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago, yeah. Highland Park High School. Very good, very good. Another good school. It's funny, our tax dollars, no, this that's it.
My name's Marie Healy, and I worked with Rick for, it would have been 41 years this September. We were both working, and we came the same year to Mark Twain, and he taught math, and I taught special ed, but I was in his homeroom, and room 208, and we just kind of went down the path of work and retirement and tutoring, and he had called the week before because of this problem, and we talked about it, and I'll really miss him. I'll miss him a lot.
Marie, what was the problem? We're all kind of mystified about what was.
What was the problem?
Because there were a whole lot of problems. But
There were a whole lot of problems. This was about a segment and a percent of what numbers would it be. There was stuff. But he did a lot. He was a great teacher, and my son came to him to be tutored because he had a certain different way of doing things, and a lot of the kids, I think, really missed him. Really missed him.
Every kid you ever tutored just
Loved him.
Right, Philip?
Yeah. I knew Rick for probably like 8 or 9 years. I met him in 7th grade, and he taught me a lot. But he taught me using lyrics from the Beatles and Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And I never really understood it until I listened to a lot of that stuff a little bit later, and it all kind of clicked into my mind. You know. But he was just this snapshot of this period of time, which is just so funny to me. I used to ask him about, what was it like going to Kent State or whatever, and he proceeded to, give me a decade's worth of life. It's such an interesting man. So much experience in one man. It's brilliant.
To use your father's expression, he was the kind of guy, if you asked him what time it was, he would tell you how to make a watch.
Well, that's good.
This is the 50th anniversary of the '68 Chicago riots with the Democratic Convention. Rick broke his neck during that.
Oh my God.
Is that when it was?
1968?
That's a long time.
Grant Park.
Was he at the convention?
Yes.
Of course.
We're outside the convention. I guess he got whacked outside.
Never told me that story.
There are only so many things we could do to frighten children.
My name's Julie, and Rick was the teacher to one of my kids, and then he was gone from the school at Mark Twain by the time my daughter needed him. But then she luckily had him as a tutor the day before every time she had a calculus or algebra test. She had to go see Rick, and he would get her through math. I mean, it was great. And my son, he really did amazing things with my son. And my son was so good at math that he, got all perfect SAT scores and all this.
Wow.
He became an English major. And Rick and I were on the school site council together, and so, oh my God, it was my beginning battles with LAUSD, and they haven't ended yet. And I witnessed so many things that I cannot believe has happened, especially in his case, how badly he was treated and stuff. But he kept going, and I give him all the credit in the world for that. It's pretty amazing. And I haven't seen him in so long, so this is really sad to me. Thanks.
I'm Judy, and I actually knew Rick through George, and there are not a whole lot of special ed advocates out there, and Rick was one of the best. And so in the special ed community, he was a gift because he helped so many kids, and it's just sad to think that he's gone and isn't going to be able to do that anymore.
Too true. How many special ed, those of you know, do you think that Rick helped over time?
Thousands, probably.
Thousands, Lauren?
He had his kids in his own class. He taught for 25 years.
And especially disabled kids too, right? And the ones that nobody else wanted, if I remember correctly.
And then he was an activist for the next 25 years.
That's the saddest part, because he's the guy that took the kids that nobody else wanted, generally.
For fruit.
The biggest problem is that if you're successful with these kids in a system that makes no attempt to educate them, you become the target, you become the enemy. I met Rick because we were both targeted, and we were targeted for noticing things like 64 years after Brown versus Board of Education, and 90% of LAUSD is still Black and Latino. And the kids in that system are not getting the education that Brown said separate but equal is inherently unequal. They're socially promoting kids grade after grade without basic skills. Kids who should be doing better than other kids are doing worse because no one is making an attempt to teach them. And if you try to teach them, they'll get rid of you.
Just so people know, Lenny has been more than just an observer of this. You've had how many teachers come through you, Lenny, that they've done evil to?
Well, this is going on all over the country because one of the things they've discovered is when you build, like at the Belmont site, when you build a school on a toxic waste dump, and the decision to build it was made because of the lawyers involved and the relationships they had with developers. But it's okay, there's no damage because we'll put Latino children there so that they can get cancer in 20 or 30 years. They don't care, and this system is driven. LAUSD should get the best price. You can walk into Fry's and buy a computer for $400 less than what they pay from their agreed-upon vendors.
Lenny, tell them who wrote the manual on how to get rid of high-time teachers.
Well, the guy who is the chief legal officer...
General counsel, right?
General counsel, his name is?
David Holmquist.
Holmquist wrote something that showed that retired teachers and the teaching scale was putting the district into bankruptcy. So immediately after that, in 2006, they started hitting teachers who are still calling me up and saying, why is the district after me? Well, you're making $80,000 a year, and if they get rid of you, they can hire somebody on an emergency credential for $35,000, somebody in their 20s with much less benefits package, and they will save $60,000 in just the first year they get rid of you. 73% of the teachers they're targeting are like Rick or me. They're over 40 and at the top of the salary scale. And then the other thing, I was fired less than 100 days away from vesting in lifetime health benefits. In 2006, they had $12 billion worth of unfunded benefits. Now, there's another thing that's going on. I don't know what you people know about charter schools, but they're privatizing public education for two reasons. One is to dumb down public education so that the American citizenry, which is the final reservoir of power under a democracy, the average principal in one of these schools can't tell you when the Second World War was because they're morons. It's the most anti-intellectual environment they have ever been in. If they allow you to vest, you're going to cost them $200,000 to $300,000, and they already had $12 billion of unfunded benefits. You want to go into court and fight them? You got a problem because the state courts have a conflict of interest that's undisclosed. If the state court decides in your favor and recognizes the targeting of literally thousands of teachers from coast to coast, and I have communications with people in New York, Montana, Florida, D.C., all over the United States, they're doing the same thing to some teachers who were nationally board certified and Teacher of the Year in the same year that they were gone after.
So what's the conflict of interest?
The conflict of interest that the state has is if they force LAUSD into bankruptcy, who's got to clean up the bankruptcy?
State.
Not the state courts, it's federal. Bankruptcy is federal.
Bankruptcy is federal, but these agencies are going to be taken over by the state.
Education's a state function.
Exactly.
Just like they did in Compton
Right.
and all over everywhere.
Inglewood.
That's what they do. Inglewood, yeah, I was out there with toilets in it, Inglewood.
Well, I think Rick really worked hard on all these kind of issues. and he just had a lot of pep and enthusiasm, and didn't give up and didn't get tired. He just kept going and going and going.
I met Rick in 1996 after he was first charged with child abuse for whistleblowing. I had 80 teachers come through me, and as a Democrat, the Democrats wouldn't help me. My Republican friends helped me, and we had LA Unified audited for falsely charging teachers with child abuse for whistleblowing. What they're doing to Lenny and a bunch of these other people now. Some people can't take this mentally, and I think that Rick just gave up through the pain and everything. And he's seen, I don't know how many of you know that one of his kids was killed by him that had a heart transplant, and they put him in a charter school, okay, with no nurse, and the kid had a heart attack and died at school when he tried to stop it. And somebody was working with him, just jumped off a bridge. And this is the second suicide for me this week. That it took 20 years. A 34-year-old girl just hung herself. For me, I'm here to see who wants to take down LA Unified for their destruction.
It's personal with LA Unified. This is about money. This is about public education.
You got to get the people that are responsible.
Guys, I just want to move the conversation.
Yeah.
This is what Rick's life is about.
I understand that, but this is...
Yeah, so the other people got to speak. Okay, so who else?
There's people behind you.
I'll do
Yeah.
one thing.
Yeah.
Short, sweet.
Yeah, just a second, let me turn around and get it, because you knew him right towards the end, man.
Right towards the end. I only knew him for a year. Only thing I want to say, my name is Jason. I knew Rick. He's a very, very sweet guy. He gave me a lot of work around here. I was a handyman here. And the only one thing that I want to say is that the nickname that he gave me was highly gifted nonconformist.
That's really good.
He's a sweet guy, man. The guy was very, very cool to me. We disagreed on political terms, but we like to have the conversation of it, right? So that's what I like. That's what I like about people, to have a conversation, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah. Well,
My name is Linda Noel, and Rick tutored my kids from the time my son was 6 years old until my youngest daughter was, 17. Actually, when Emily was even...
How many years was that?
Oh, I don't even want to talk. Over 20.
Oh, really?
20.
Wow. Okay, I got that.
Yes, he helped my two older children had learning difficulties, and he helped me get through the LA Unified. They had private tutoring, but he helped me get through the LA Unified program, especially when my daughter's rights were being violated. But Rick was... He was family. He was Uncle Rick, but he was a unique individual. He was a little different. You know what I'm talking about. But he was a truly lovable, huge-hearted guy who was there to help you whenever you needed help. He helped my kids do well in life and get through their education. And every time I talked to him, I just said, thank you for helping me get them there. He knew my mother-in-law, Martha, who introduced me, who lived around the corner, and they would go to all the meetings together, and that's how I met him. And, he was family. My youngest daughter took him to help him go find Karma. It was just, he was family. He was at our house for the holidays, and we were calling him and talking to him. All my kids, Emily was just talking to him. She became a teacher, and talked to Rick about it. So, my son became a lawyer.
This is your daughter back here that he tutored?
Yeah.
Wow. You're really emotional right over this, aren't you?
Yeah. But
You should be.
Yeah, but we loved him to death.
Because he helped make you who you are, didn't he? Wow.
Yeah, but he was family. And that's what should be attributed to him, is that he's such a huge...
Sorry.
Yeah, he's such an enormous being, and he touched so many lives. And not even half of people are here. And I just want people to, thank him for everything he's done. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Anybody else?
If anybody has any funny memories of Rick, also...
I have a funny one. I'll start. Hi everyone, my name is Carissa. I know Rick because my boyfriend Ricardo rents a room here. So, funny story. I was making mango salsa one day and Rick walks in the kitchen and I say, hey Rick, can I get you some mango salsa? And he goes, no, it's okay, and just dips his whole hand into the mango salsa. But, that's why I love Rick, is, he didn't conform, he was true to himself, and so that's just always a very funny memory that I will treasure for forever.
Oh, man. Somebody's got to have some more classic stories. Come on, man. You got something good.
Come on. It's no longer...
This is it, you know?
It wasn't that. It was just... Rick and I had a funny and tumultuous relationship. No, it was... We discovered... I knew Rick for about a year, and we discovered into it that him and I had a lot of similar characteristics. He would tell me, it's like looking in a mirror. And I guess it's a little bit related to kind of digging into food, but it was Thanksgiving of last year, and I hosted my entire family from Kentucky. So you can imagine what headspace I was in towards the end of the week as I was, trying to get them back to home and everything. And so I got some food. I was back here eating, and I think you were here, but Rick walked in and he just goes, "Can I have a fry?" And before he could finish it, his hand was just all the way deep into the fry box. And I was just like, "Rick, can you please not go digging through the food before I've touched it?" And so then he throws the fry down, storms out, he goes, "Fine," slams the door, and goes and locks himself in his room. And so it took a couple hours of talking it through and him mediating, but we ended up letting bygones be bygones. And then every time anything would happen, he would just go, "It was like that time you blew up at me." So as I've said before, as a Southern boy who grew up in a conservative house and felt like a black sheep, Rick was sort of the wacky gay grandpa I never had. And I always needed. So I'm thankful that I got to know him for a short time.
Oh, boy. Any more funny stories?
Some of them might not be appropriate.
Well, I mean, he's not here to say anything.
Oh, if he were here, he'd say it.
Oh, he'd say it at all.
Why don't you then? Say it all.
Well, I've known Rick for a long time, since 1996.
Oh, right on.
And he always fought for everybody, didn't give a damn. He and I had some problems, and then Lauren gives me this email, and it's just like, I've seen enough tragedy out of these people, putting all this heat on all these students that he's trying to help. Listen to all these parents here who have students that he helped, that even people of means needed help because he had this specialized expertise, right, people? And Judy's bringing that up, because she really knows. Judy's worked in Bill and the special ed in the national level for forever. And Rick was a jewel that's now gone. So, both you people I never met. And it's amazing the breadth of an amount of time that's represented here. I didn't have a clue, because I didn't even know, because I hadn't known him recently. We'd had some problems, but I never thought it would come to this. But the more I found out about his last month and stuff, the more I understand it, as I understand this other 34-year-old girl that hung herself a week before he did. And when I went up to go see where it happened, there's police everywhere, because that day somebody committed homicide on the same floor. And then we go to Ramparts to talk about her daughter. One of the two detectives was a detective from the homicide. Now this is twisted. Personally, I'm tired of LA Unified getting a free ride. Because as far as I'm concerned, his students are dead and destroyed, a lot of them. And a lot of teachers, like Lenny's talking about, because of their total corruption, it's time to come to an end. So
I think on a happier note, Rick helped a lot of people in a real positive way. and he helped a lot of teachers in a really positive way.
Always.
And I think that's what we need to keep in mind for us.
Yeah, he helped my 3 children, Philip spoke, Josh, and Joni. We were in Hawaii on a vacation less than a month ago, and Josh had a final that he had to work on. I hadn't taken statistics for over 40 years. And I said, Rick, can you help me out? And this is last minute. Spent 2 hours on the phone, passed both those classes with flying colors, but he was always there.
Wow.
When Josh would go play over at Penmark, if you want to see that, he was always there for the families.
See, I'm disturbed about that loss for people who need the specialized help that he gave that almost nobody gave. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Joni. I knew Rick. My brother with the blue shirt was one of his homeboys. My other brother, the gray shirt, was also one of his students. And I don't know, I didn't know him that well. I wasn't his student for a very long period of time. I thought he was too strange. In a good way. I loved him. But I'm just happy. I'm very happy to be here and grateful to see all these people that really care about him, and like to sit down and just go around and talk about what he's done for us and what he's done for the world, and only the positive things. I mean, like Rick had done a lot of things for a lot of people, and we're just a small, number of them. Yeah, he was weird, and yeah, he might steal your fries, and like, but like, every family has their own like ups and downs, and in the downs and in the ups, he was there. He was a rock for my family. For my brother, he could have been a real mess. But Rick, no offense, Phil. But I just remember Rick would just sit at our house and like stay, and like we'd try to invite him for dinner, and like sometimes he'd stay, sometimes he wouldn't. But I do remember it's like normal tutoring sessions are like 30 minutes to an hour, and like Rick would stay, and like he'd have these weird conversations. I mean, like about life, but like just like Rick things that are totally unique, and normal people would not have those conversations, but Rick did, and Rick was a really huge center point of my family. And I don't know if anyone really ever brought it up, but like he was our family, and even though we kind of paid him to be there, yeah, but that wasn't what he was there for. I'm sure like we could, he was there to watch my brother grow and like help my family and help my father, and like I think that's a big deal. And that was his whole life. That's all he did. All he did was give and give and give, and never ask for anything in return. Maybe some mango salsa, but yeah, that's all.
I'd like to share a couple of things. They're kind of silly, but I love Rick. He's family forever and always. Tutoring sessions. They're the most interesting time of my life. My favorite was Rick would never eat chocolate. He would have a chocolate box, and he would hide it in the upper cupboard, and he would go get it, and he'd be like, Emily, I just want to eat it, but I'm not going to, and he'd just stick his face in it and smell it. And he convinced me that would make his craving go away, so I tried it, and I still do it to this day. And then, at one point, he had a lot of cats in his house. There were probably like 8 or 4, I don't know, some one of those numbers. And I remember during our tutoring session, someone would open the door and they'd all go running outside. So we would spend probably about an hour and a half in the yard trying to corral the cats to get them back inside. And lastly, because I know he would want this to be mentioned, I was here when the White Sox won, and that was his team. And I've never seen him as happy. He was like, fuck your algebra test! We're
That sounds like Rick.
I have one last story, because I have to take off. I have a sick puppy at home. But this is something that it's kind of similar to Devin's story. This wasn't maybe one of Rick and I's finer moments, but this just was kind of just like who Rick was. I had just gotten home from about a 12-hour day of work, and it was about 10 o'clock at night. I went in, showered, got ready for bed, and then, you know, I was just kind of winding down. And around 11:56, I get a knock on my bedroom door. I lived in this room over here. And it was Rick. And he goes, "Adam?" I'm like, kind of stunned why he's knocking on my door at close to midnight. And I'm like, "Yes?" And he goes, "Can you open the door?" And I'm like, "Sure, okay." And I opened up the door and he goes, "Rent's due." And I was like, "Rick, it's midnight. I will see you in the morning." And then I proceeded to close the door, and he was just like, he stood there still, and he knocked on the door again, and he was like, "But rent's due." And I was like, "I will pay you in the morning, I promise. I want to go to sleep." But, and, you know, I paid him in the morning, and everything was fine. But he was very, very confused as to why I was not able to pay him at midnight. So, you know, when rent was due, rent was due. But, I gotta take off.
Yeah. Hope you will.
Good to see you. Nice to see you. Hope Arrow feels better.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm gonna ride my bike.
Oh, yeah.
Need any help? I think I can navigate it to the garage.
The garage is
go through here.
So Rick is not, he's not gone. He's forever in our hearts. He may not be physically here, but he is forever in our hearts. Well, I know he's in my heart all the time. Rick wasn't just my tutor. He was, I consider him my grandfather. For his birthday, I was like, "Rick, here." And he read the letter and he's like, "So I'm your grandfather now, Tootie?" And I'm like, "Yes, Rick." And he gave me the tightest hug ever, and it was the most beautiful thing. And every time we had our tutoring sessions, he'll be like, "Tootie, 5 more minutes, make me a coffee." Every single time. Because that's the one thing he asked. He always gave, but that's the one thing he asked. And now that I'm aware of it, something I appreciate so much, because after how much he gave, I at least gave him a little bit. Thank you.
He always used to tell everybody that Tootie made the best coffee, but it came from like a package that you just put into a cup and mixed. But he would tell everybody, he was like, "Tootie just makes the best coffee."
Oh, man.
He'll be sorely missed. Yes, he will.
My name's Bo. I met Rick within the last few years, and I had the very good fortune of knowing him, and he will be sorely missed. And I just have very rarely ever met someone who cared so much and loved so deeply for those around him, and it's just, it's sad that he's gone, but as you said, he will be forever in our hearts.
A Jewish tradition is when you have a child, you name somebody after that so you can remember him. We got a puppy on Monday, and Doctor said, "Let's name him Ricky," so we have a puppy.
She's a spaz.
Appropriate.
Yeah.
You believe in reincarnation.
I'm Helen Fallon. I met Rick probably in the mid-90s. My friend and I were trying to think about when we first met Rick. We ended up serving on a committee with him. He was trying to get highly gifted centers, right? So they'd be at like certain schools, and he fought the good fight. I mean, I didn't always agree with his methodology. Sometimes I could see where he was interested in sort of aggravating people more than he needed to. But the one thing about Rick is ultimately he cared about the kids, and that was what drove him. And I always appreciated that he really was passionate about doing right by kids. He tutored my daughter at one point in it was a trick. And like you, she found him a little weird. But the funniest story about that was that he showed her how to do a particular problem, and he said, well, there's one short way to do it, and there's the long way. And he showed her both ways, and she had this problem on a test, and she did the long way. And the teacher marked it as wrong. And she was so indignant about it that she spoke up in class, and the entire class turned on the teacher. She had learned this from the tutor, and it was perfectly legit, got the right answer, and how dare they mark her wrong on this? So I think Rick really appreciated that. He somehow or another managed to disrupt this entire class because of his methodology of this particular problem. I haven't seen him in a long time because I kind of gave up on the fight. But, I'd see his postings on Nextdoor, and he was still hanging in there, fighting about issues, stepping up to the plate and trying to get people motivated about doing something. And I think that's his legacy. I think that, a lot of us will remember him for that, and hopefully a lot of us will, a lot of people will continue to keep up that fight, and all the kids whose lives he's touched will remember him for that, and I think that's wonderful. It's very special, and it's, I hope that when this time comes for me, people will have such positive things to say about him.
Well, when I saw him at the gym a few months ago, we used to work out. Rick didn't really work out assiduously. He always had his cell phone going, and and he always asked me how one of my sons was having some problems, and he was talking about. I said, I'm seeing your posts. They're so obsessive, Rick. I said, this is taking a lot out of you. All of this work. I said, it's a great expensive spirit. And he looked at me and he said, I love it. I love it. He didn't say it's meat and drink to me, but I love it. And I said, well, it's... And then he said, well, he never said, maybe I should slow down, but he made some comment like, but I didn't really believe that. That he was going to slow down one little bit. That wasn't in him to give up or slow down.
My name is Molly Tilson, and I met Rick in the 90s, probably when I met George too, battling with LAUSD. Rick took the educational issues, and I felt Helen and I were a little smarter and took the safety issues and didn't have as much of a battle with them correcting things as Rick did. He also tutored my son and got him through whatever math he had to get through way back then. Some of you haven't seen him for a while. He's an active member of our West Mar Vista Residents Association and also on the Mar Vista Community Council, although I don't see him there because I don't go to those committee meetings. He still was doing battle with Mark Twain up until the end. I don't know if that ever would have died down. He did have the passion for helping special ed kids or any kids. Math was his thing, and he helped many of the kids in the area with anything they needed. He became their friends on top of being a math teacher.
To your point on Mar Vista, there's something that maybe none of you even know. Rick, remember when Rick was working on the neighborhood council situation? Well, he asked me to go to a meeting at the library with a bunch of the city yucks. And I pulled out my camera, and the deal was, you'll do business with us and I leave my camera off. As a result of that, after 2 years, they put in a system whereby you can get rid of the neighborhood council members now in a very fair system. And that is something that's going to affect our city for a long time. Without Rick calling me in, and then Rick finished this thing off, which is something that is going to affect this city for a long time because there was no methodology to get rid of bad people. And I'm really glad that they took 2 years because they worked out all the things that can be a problem, you know? So I want you to know that that's something that Rick did that had broader than his children because of a worker as Mar Vista, who's affected this entire city. I think there's 95 city councils. And there's a lot of corruption because we heard from these people. That's all on that point. You made me remember that, and I thought it was important that everybody understood that he did something that was not just with families, but that he really got on and we actually had a win, and it's a big deal to have a win.
Albie, you want to close it out?
Yeah. Does anybody have any more stories or memories? If not, thank you guys all for coming. I know Rick would have really appreciated seeing you guys all out. And thank you guys for sharing beautiful memories of him.
Thank you for having
Thanks for having us here and doing this.
Feel free to have more wine, more food, anything that you guys would like.
Thanks.
Thank you guys.
And thanks.